Okay. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for the announcement regarding our search for the next Chief of Police in the Fayetteville Police Department. When we began this search, we went through a comprehensive process to gather input from stakeholders, including council, police department staff, city staff, and the residents of Fayetteville. This information helped us understand what the important characteristics were for our next Chief of Police. Overwhelmingly, the feedback we received was someone who prioritizes collaboration, transparency, accountability, and a desire to make Fayetteville an even safer and more secure place to live. We knew based on community interest that our chief should be invested fully in this community. Through an external search firm, Developmental Associates, we began searching nationally for candidates that met that criteria. The search firm managed the process, including identification of potential candidates, screening, and preliminary interviews. The team of search professionals, which includes a former police chief, leveraged their expertise to develop a pool of highly qualified candidates. They engaged in multiple stages of interactions and interviews to narrow down the pool to several candidates who advanced to an assessment center during the first week of December. The assessment center, run by the search firm, included law enforcement professionals from communities across the nation and local community members as volunteer evaluators. Activities range from simulation press conferences such as this, to written exercises, as well as presentations and coaching scenarios for staff. After reviewing the results of the entire process, I am presenting 2 finalists to our community today. First, we have in alphabetical order, Assistant Chief Kimberly Brayton. And second, in alphabetical order, we have Assistant Chief James Nolet, both with the Fayetteville Police Department. You're likely very familiar already with both of these individuals, and I am proud that following a rigorous process from a pool of highly qualified candidates around the country, both of our finalists are from here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and have demonstrated they are invested in this community. At this time, I would invite both of them up in just alphabetical order to just briefly say who they are and their kind of tenure and history with the Fayetteville Police Department, and then I'll proceed.
Good morning. My name is Kim Braden. I'm the Assistant Chief currently over Field Operations Bureau for the Fayetteville Police Department. I've served the Fayetteville community for the past 27 years, and I'm originally from Fayetteville, as my father was a retired Special Forces soldier out at Fort Bragg. Thank you.
Thank you. James Nolet, I'm an Assistant Chief with the Fayetteville Police Department. I've been with the Fayetteville Police Department approximately 25 years. I came to North Carolina. Based on my accent, you can tell I'm not from here. Originally from Providence, Rhode Island, where both my parents were police officers, and technically I'm 3rd-generation police officer. But I live here. I've been here since 1999 after spending 6 years in the 82nd. I've made this my home. I didn't want to go back to Rhode Island and shovel snow anymore, so this is where I stayed. I married Robin, who's my wife, for the last 15 years. She's from Fayetteville, and we have an 11-year-old son. Currently, I oversee the Specialized Service Bureau, which encompasses everything outside of patrol and investigations, but incredibly humbled by this opportunity, and thank the city manager for this opportunity.
So talking about next steps. We know based on community input and feedback that our next chief should be fully invested in our community and uniquely prepared to build upon the foundation that is currently in place. Which is why I'm pleased that through the rigorous process using, again, community members and external reviewers, these 2 candidates will be presented to the community on Tuesday. And during this community meeting that we'll hold here in council chambers on Tuesday at 6 p.m., the citizens of Fayetteville will actually be afforded an opportunity to ask them questions as well. During this meeting, the media and community will be able to do so using a QR code and ask us real-time questions of each candidate. The questions can be submitted in advance and are anonymous. The link will be made available this afternoon by visiting fayettevillennc.gov/chief search, and we'll also provide that later today as well in another media release. And now I'm happy to take a few questions, though we will reserve any immediate questions for the candidates until Tuesday evening session.
A quick question here. You talked about the nationwide search. Can you be specific about the number of folks who actually applied? And we're down to 2. Was that whittled down from 10, 5? Be a little more specific about how we ended up at 2.
Well, we started first with looking at who is out there, and that's why we used a recruiter. And the recruiter actually made face-to-face, or in some cases, email or direct contacts with candidates from around the country who were ready for this next level. Based upon that, I was presented with about 10 candidates who were filtered through a vetted process that we described. And from those 10, I invited a certain number to participate in the assessment center. And from the assessment center, we're now down to 2.
So what was that number, 10?
No, I'm not disclosing the number of candidates that we actually had, but I did present, the slate that I had was 10 candidates, of qualified candidates from the recruiter.
Were there any police chiefs in other jurisdictions?
Yes.
Were you hoping to stay in-house with this hire?
I'm hoping, as always, to find someone who is willing to invest even further in our community, and it is very gratifying to have 2 of those people who are already on staff here.
Based on the public input, was there a strong preference from city residents to have someone who's already with the department or someone local?
Myron, I don't quite remember that was one of the criteria that came up, but I do know that based upon my conversations with many members of the community, as well as police officers in Fayetteville Police Department, I think many of them were hoping that the candidates would be internal.
After the forum on Tuesday, how much weight will you give community input in your selection?
That is always something that we wrestle with, because part of the what's gotten us to the point so far is the assessment of so many different characteristics that the public may not ever know about and see. In addition to the work that we're going to be doing on Tuesday at the forum, I also will be doing a detailed interview with both candidates as well, along with members of the manager's office and the city attorney's office. And so, but I always welcome public input, and that is one of the reasons that from the beginning all the way until the end, not only with this search, but also the one that yielded Chief Hawkins, that we followed a very similar process of inviting the public in.
But ultimately, it's your decision.
Yes, sir.
So when do you plan to name the chief?
I hope to have the chief named before the holiday break at Christmas.
Before Christmas?
And when will you start?
Chief Hawkins is set to retire, I think, at the end of January. Given that both of the candidates are currently assistant chiefs, I think the transition will be a lot smoother, whether or not it is in an interim role or whether or not it is also in a shared role with Chief Hawkins, depending on the timing and the projects which are afoot.
Were there any candidates of color?
I couldn't disclose that because for many of the candidates, that is something that until I meet them, I don't have access to that information. Okay. Well, if there are no further questions, I thank you for coming down and look forward to your participation on Tuesday night as well. Thank you.